Hello everyone, welcome back to the light novel Tensei Slime summary series on AniMonolith. Continuing from where we left off, in another chamber we see the clash between the Flare Lord Benimaru and a man named Granite. Granite, with his swept-back black hair and short beard, is none other than the third rank among the Imperial Guards and the leader of the Four Knights. Like Damrata, he is over 2,000 years old, yet still hailed as a legendary hero of the Empire. Once praised as the god of war, Granite helped maintain peace for millennia and earned his place as one of Emperor Rudra's most trusted champions. Even compared to Damrata, his strength is in another league, enough to fight Kondo on equal terms. As a newly awakened demon lord, Benimaru's magicule count had increased tenfold, but even then it amounted to only half of Granite's overwhelming reserves. To make things worse, Granite was blessed with Rudra's ultimate enchantment that allowed him to see through the abilities of his opponents. Confident in his superiority, Granite believed Benimaru's group posed no real threat. Still, he recognized Benimaru's potential to eventually awaken an ultimate skill. With 3 of the 4 knights already slain, Granite attempted to recruit him. His offer was simple but insulting. Submit under his command, join the Empire, and help bring down Demon Lord Rimuru. To Granite, monsters were faithless beings who only followed the strongest, so surely Benimaru could be swayed. Benimaru, however, endured the insults with patience. He was waiting for something, the mysterious voice of the world, to grant him the power he sought. During their exchange, he also learned vital information, that Rudra possessed a domination skill, one capable of controlling even someone as strong as Kondo. Granite, perhaps too proud, revealed far too much, believing Benimaru to be beneath him. But when Granite went so far as to call Benimaru and his allies too weak to even be worth dominating, Benimaru's anger finally boiled over. Enough was enough. The battle erupted instantly. Granite opened with his strongest technique right from the first strike, determined to crush Benimaru before he could awaken an ultimate skill mid-battle. His confidence came from both his vast combat experience and his ability to analyze opponents' capabilities with terrifying precision. In his eyes, none of Benimaru's group were yet ultimate skill holders, and thus none could possibly threaten him. But Granite had underestimated one thing: Benimaru's resolve. Granite's power was overwhelming, enough to shock even Benimaru with the sheer force he had been hiding. But that alone wasn't enough to bring him down. At the very moment Granite unleashed his decisive strike, Benimaru awakened a brand new ultimate skill, Heat King Amaterasu. This was the result of Ciel's analysis of Velgrynd's abilities, an upgrade that came at the perfect time because without it, Benimaru would have been finished. The symbol of Amaterasu was the black glow now wrapped around Red Lotus. The sword Kurobe had painstakingly reforged, pushing it close to the level of a true mythical weapon. That dark radiance could not be burned, frozen, or destroyed, while releasing heat of terrifying magnitude. With this skill, Benimaru gained control over heat and light, allowing him to accelerate himself to near divine speeds. He couldn't quite reach Velgrynd's level, but it was still more than enough. Granite's all-out strike, powerful enough to shatter mountains, was completely nullified by Amaterasu. In the very next instant, Benimaru counterattacked with a slash faster than the eye could follow. Red Lotus, empowered by Amaterasu, tore through Granite's mythical armor with ease. And just like that, the mighty god of war was reduced to ashes, cut down in a single decisive strike. Once hailed as Rudra's strongest shield, a warrior who could stand alongside Kondo himself, Granite fell because he underestimated his opponent and wasted too much time talking. On the Imperial flagship, Velgrynd was shaken. Rimuru had devoured her parallel existence, and the connection to it had been completely severed. No matter how much energy she poured in, it was like throwing power into a bottomless pit. That split body had carried half her total magicules, and now it was gone, shattering her belief in her own invincibility. Left with only 20% of her full strength, Velgrynd realized she could no longer afford to stand guard at the gate. A terrifying vision of failure loomed before her, and she decided to abandon her post and rush to Rudra, her beloved, with the sole intent of protecting him. But the moment she stepped out, someone was already waiting. In the area of the 8 gates, Testarossa sat gracefully with a cup of tea in hand, as if expecting her. "Oh my, Velgrynd-sama, where are you rushing off to? Have you perhaps forgotten something?" she teased, elegant yet sharp. Unlike their first confrontation at Dworgen's borders, Velgrynd was no longer smiling calmly. Instead, her face was twisted with fury. She knew better than anyone how troublesome Testarossa could be. You still want to stand against me after the beating I gave you? Velgrynd growled. That's right, Testarossa replied smoothly, rising from her seat. I don't need to win. I just need to buy time. Velgrynd's fist shot forward, shattering furniture in a blazing shockwave. Even with only a fraction of her magicules, her power still outstripped Testarossa's by tenfold. Her blows combined devastating speed with searing heat, enough to turn anyone else to ash. Yet Testarossa remained composed, weaving around the attacks. She knew victory was impossible. There was no way to kill Velgrynd. But stalling her, that was another matter entirely. Back at Dwargon, Velgrynd had crushed the 3 primordial demons with just 10% of her power. Now, with 20%, she still couldn't overwhelm Testarossa outright. That alone showed how far the demoness had grown since evolving into a demon lord. For Testarossa, and for demons in general, the concepts of victory and defeat were different from mortals. Losing a battle didn't necessarily mean defeat. True defeat was being annihilated or forced to run. Demons were immortal, but death was still their greatest fear, because if they were slain, their evolution reset to 0, a terrifying prospect in a world where survival depended on constant battle. That was why beings like Moss, who had endured for 10,000 years without falling, were so rare. Outsiders might call the Primordial's loss at Dwargon a defeat, but to demons like Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera, it was not. As long as they hadn't been killed or fled, they had not truly lost. Even Zagian had been challenged countless times by Testarossa, who believed persistence itself meant she hadn't yet been defeated. Only the truly peerless, like Diablo, could claim the title of being undefeated in the truest sense. With that mindset, Testarossa stood firm against Velgrynd. She might be outmatched in raw power, but so long as she endured without fleeing, she had not lost. And in her heart, she believed, if she held out long enough, the tide would eventually turn in her favor. The battle with Velgrynd had also changed Testarossa's outlook. In the past, she had dismissed skills as unnecessary, but now she understood just how crucial they were. During the time she waited for Velgrynd to leave her quarters, Testarossa prayed for greater strength. To her surprise, a strange voice answered and granted her a new ultimate skill, Death King Belial. Much like Luminous's lustful king Asmodeus, it had dominion over life and death. But Testarossa's leaned more heavily toward death. With this new power, holding Velgrynd in check no longer seemed impossible. Their clash grew fiercer, red and white intertwining at blinding speed. Velgrynd was ferocious while Testarossa moved with elegance. When Testarossa revealed her awakening to an ultimate skill, Velgrynd was taken aback. She began to realize that escaping from this fight would be far harder than she expected. Just then, a massive explosion ripped through space itself, shaking both of them. One of the gates burst open, and from it staggered Carrera, bruised and battered, with Ajera close behind. Heh, looks like I made it just in time. I hate losing, so don't expect me to sit this one out, Carrera declared. But despite her words, she could barely stand. Esprit quickly guided her to a chair Zonda had prepared. Ultima appeared next, casually taking a seat beside her, showing no urgency to jump into the fight either. Then came Benimaru, Xian, and Sui, emerging one after another through the remaining gates. Faced with this sight, Velgrynd's expression hardened. One by one, the strongest fighters she had counted on had been defeated, and the battlefield had turned against her. It was a tactical victory for Testarossa, and with Rimuru on his way, Rudra and Velgrynd's hopes were on the verge of collapse. At the same time, another clash was unfolding on the ground. With Velgrynd gone from Dwargon, the forbidden spell Birthday was disrupted, but not before several undead elves had been born. Since these beings could grow into dangerous warriors, Laplace set out with Vega to find Kigali before things got worse. When they arrived, they saw Imperial soldiers loading the newly born undead elves onto military transports. The commander on site stepped forward, a man in a bright red uniform with doll-like androgynous features. His presence was hard to read, not particularly strong, but unsettling nonetheless. He introduced himself as Feldway, 10th rank of the Empire. Before Laplace could respond, Vega grew impatient. Let me crush him already. But Laplace quickly stopped him. He knew if Vega acted recklessly, Feldway might call in Tyr and Footman, which could lead to bloodshed among their own comrades. Just as Laplace hesitated, an unexpected voice cut in. Vega, come help me. Laplace is a traitor. I'll deal with him here. It was Yuki Kagurazaka. Laplace froze. His boss, someone he trusted completely, was now labeling him a traitor and moving in to kill him. No matter how desperately Laplace called out for Yuki to wake up, His words didn't reach him. Yuki attacked without hesitation, his killing intent undeniable. Vega, ever the beast of instinct, immediately switched sides. For him, the strong were meant to be followed. "Haha, boss, when you're done with him, can I eat him?" "Go ahead," Yuki replied coldly. That was all Vega needed. He happily lunged at Laplace. Against Yuki alone, Laplace might have stood a chance. Against Vega too, perhaps, but against both at once? Survival seemed impossible. To make matters worse, when Laplace tried to escape, Feldway's spatial domination sealed the entire battlefield like a cage. There was no way out. "Damn it!" Laplace cursed, forced to fight. Even so, he refused to give in easily. Exploiting an opening, he struck Vega with a heavy kick, knocking the brute aside for the moment. But Yuki's attacks kept coming relentlessly. For a split second, Laplace thought he saw something familiar in Yuki's face, and that moment of hesitation nearly cost him his life. Yuki's fist closed in, and Laplace could only scream in his heart, "This is the end." Yet the blow never landed. A hand had stopped Yuki's strike. "Kufufufufu. Oh dear, Rimuru-sama will scold me if I let this go too far. And that's your fault, isn't it?" It was Diablo, and that wraps up the events for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next episode on AniMonolith.